The transfer window has officially slammed shut, and it has been a busy deadline day for Chelsea. Signings, sales, failures on both fronts, all the while we prepared to take on our little brothers from South London, Crystal Palace. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel today. My name is the Crimson Wolf, and welcome to the Chelsea Countdown. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, which is of course my lineup and predictions for our game versus Crystal Palace, I first want to go over just the entire situation that happened on deadline day. First and foremost, I'll start with the most important thing. We have signed Jadon Sancho from Manchester United. Now, this is a loan with an obligation to buy next summer, which means we obviously split the wages with Man United this season, and sign him next year with the prerogative that we finish inside the top 14, which we're going to do. Like, if we don't, then genuinely this entire thing's gone to hell. That's going to happen. It's between, I believe, 20 and 25 million, depending on how high we finish in the table. So we'll wait and find out how much that is come the end of the season. I don't hate this signing. We've seen what Sancho's capable of in both of his spells at Dortmund, as well as in flashes at Manchester United. I don't believe Manchester United was the right club for him. I think the system and the tactics were not right for him. And I think when they signed him, the club was just a mess in general. I think he'll do a lot better with us than he did at Man United, because we have a lot more of a, I'd say, more of a structure. I'm not saying Man United don't have a structure, but I think ours is better for Sancho. And I think the tactics that Maresca employ are more suited to someone like Sancho. I'm very excited to see what Sancho can do. He is a Chelsea player as well. I forgot to mention that. It'll be really good to see what Sancho can do. On to probably the biggest rain cloud hanging over Chelsea right now. The failed signing of Victor Osimhen. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed. I've been wanting to sign Osimhen for about a year now, and I think it's very disappointing on both fronts. Pretty disappointed in the owners and the sporting directors, because I think we could have offered Osimhen more to join us, because obviously the big problem with Osimhen joining was always his wages. We probably could have offered him more for him to come to us. On the flip side, Osimhen chose staying at Napoli for a minimum of 6 months, up to 12 months, of playing absolutely zero football, instead of coming to us, being the world-class number 9 that we needed, playing up front every week, earning possibly slightly less money. He chose money to sit there on his arse and do sod all, which is really disappointing. There is a very real possibility he ends up in Saudi in the next couple of days, because the Saudi Arabian transfer window doesn't shut till Monday. And quick, I just mentioned Ivan Toney there, so I'll quickly cover that. A bit disappointed that we didn't get that over the line. That was kind of out of our control, because Al Ali wanted both Osimhen and Toney, or they were after one of them, and so were we. We were using Osimhen as the mainframe and Toney as the backup. Unfortunately, because we were adamant in getting Osimhen, we didn't end up getting Toney, because he went to Al Ali, which is a bit unfortunate for us. Toney would have been okay, but I digress. I'm not going to worry about that one too much. What I am going to say is, Jackson has 1 year. 1 year to prove that he is the striker that can lead us forward. Now, I'm going to give him credit, and this is pretty big credit. Jackson is probably the best striker we've had since Diego Costa. That's not necessarily a rub for him, more of just the lack of quality we've had since Diego Costa. Morata was never what we needed. Giroud was probably the best we'd had since then. Giroud was very good. Tammy was okay, but he was never really destined to be a world-class number 9, I don't think. We all know what happened with Lukaku. Timo and Kai were never really proper strikers, and Aubameyang just failed outright. So, Jackson's probably been the best we've had since Diego Costa. And he's now got 1 year to prove that he is capable of leading the line and being this top-class number 9. Because if he doesn't, and we go back into the market for a striker next summer, we're going to have a couple more options on the table. Could still go back for Osimhen if he's still there in 12 months. We could go for someone like Victor Gyökeres, because I think he'll probably want out of Sporting by that point. Could go for someone like Benjamin Sesko as well, because he'll be back in the market by then. Maybe John Duran if he's still at Villa. So we will have options by then. If Jackson does not prove himself in a year's time, he's going to be in trouble, because he will get replaced. Maresca was adamant about bringing in a striker this summer. If Jackson doesn't perform, how do you think he's going to feel next summer? So Jackson's on borrowed time if he doesn't produce. As for our departures on deadline day, the most prominent one is, of course, Raheem Sterling on loan to Arsenal. I think this is probably a good deal for both sides, and Raheem Sterling, I think he wanted to go somewhere where he was going to play football. He will get played at Arsenal. Arsenal needed some cover on the wings, specifically someone that can play right wing. Raheem Sterling obviously can play right wing. So I think that's very important for them, because obviously they need someone who's able to take a bit of the weight off Bukayo Saka's shoulders, so they'll appreciate that massively. We appreciate getting a ton of Sterling's wages off the books, and just a negative aura around the dressing room being lifted. I think that's probably a very good idea. Other departures we can talk about are Amanda Breuer going on loan to Everton with a 30 million option to buy. Breuer will probably be okay at Everton. Everton needed Breuer realistically before he got injured, so two years ago I'd say. They needed him then. They've got him now, which is unfortunate because it's not a fully powered Amanda Breuer. Obviously since his injury that's done him over massively, so very unfortunate for him. I hope he does well at Everton. I hope he goes and bags a couple goals, and with any luck we get 30 million next season. Let's hope. And the final move that happened on deadline day was Trevor Chalobah's move to Crystal Palace on loan, which I'll bring up later when we talk a bit more about Crystal Palace. I'm not the biggest fan of this idea. On one hand, if Trevor Chalobah is destined to be sold, it's a good thing because he'll get game time at Palace, which will put him in the shop window a bit, so that's a good thing. The bad thing about it is we probably could have just kept Chalobah. I've not been impressed with Dizazi and Badiashile at all so far under pre-season and in the Servette games, so we really could have done with someone like Chalobah. I don't particularly believe he's our best centre-back. I know a lot of people believe he's our best centre-back. I don't believe that. I still believe our best centre-backs are Wesley Fofana and Levi Colwill. So pros and cons to that one, but overall not the worst thing. I will be covering transfers, both ours and the Premier League's, a lot in an upcoming video, so I'll talk more about that then. Now, moving into the lineup. First starting in goal with Robert Sanchez. We have heard from Maresca, I mentioned this in the last countdown, which is that Jorgensen is going to be the cup goalkeeper, whereas Sanchez starts in the Premier League. This is a Premier League game, so Sanchez starts. He was pretty good versus Wolves last time. I don't particularly believe there's much he can do for either goals, so I'm not going to hold him too much accountable for that. I still have questions with his ball-playing ability under pressure, so there is that, and his shot stopping at times can be called into question. But other than that, he is a pretty solid goalkeeper. He was monumental in Cole Palmer's goal versus Wolves last time, obviously from the goal kick. He obviously kicked it long, headed it onto Nicholas Jackson, who obviously put it in the path of Cole Palmer to score. So good from Sanchez last time. Hopefully he can improve upon that, and with any luck we get a clean sheet out of this game. Obviously he can't do that by himself, so his back four is unchanged from both Wolves and Man City games. Malo Gusto, Levi Colwill, Wesley Fofana and Marc Cucurella. This is very clearly the back four that Maresca has chosen to go with at the minute. It won't be the back four moving forward because obviously, as we know, Malo Gusto will be replaced by Reece James once he comes back, which is fair enough. Reece James is club captain. When he plays, he's probably the best right back in the world, so no complaints there. Wesley Fofana and Levi Colwill have very clearly been chosen to be our first choice centre-backs this season, which I have no complaints about. I was under the opinion pretty much all of last year that these two were our starting centre-backs going forward. I said they should be our starting centre-backs going into this season, and here we are. They are our starting centre-backs. And Marc Cucurella so far has not put a foot wrong since he's come back. I haven't seen anything to believe he's been poor at any margin. both of the teams he's gone up against, he's done pretty well. In the Man City game especially, like, up against Doku, he had a really good game. Doku was fine. Doku couldn't do anything against him. Savinho he struggled a little bit more with, but overall nothing too dangerous came from that. And then Phil Foden he didn't really go up against because Foden didn't really get to that point. I'm anticipating another good performance from Kukurea, and obviously now, playing Palace, he doesn't have Elise to worry about, which is even better. As we move into the midfield, consisting of Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo, and Cole Palmer playing in the number 10. Enzo Fernandez is going to start this game as the captain, as we likely know. Moises Caicedo was rested for the Servette game, or didn't start for the Servette game. He came off on the bench, so it's likely he's going to start this game as well. Romeo Lavia is obviously not back from his injury. We hope to see him back after the international break. I don't believe Kenan Dewsbury Hall's going to start this game because he played 90 minutes versus Servette, so that's very unlikely. This is pretty much our only options for a midfield pivot right now. And Cole Palmer is Cole Palmer. He starts any game he's available for, pretty much. So I hope this will be a very good outing for Cole Palmer, as we all do. He was obviously came off the bench for Servette, and it started to look a lot better when he did come on. I don't believe Christopher Nkunku is going to start at the number 10, nor do I believe João Felix is going to start either, because A, it's Cole Palmer, and B, Felix possibly could be played on the left. I don't believe he will be. I'll cover that in a second. And Nkunku hasn't looked the best so far. He's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but he hasn't exactly lived up to the entire cult status that he's had for the past year. So, with any luck, he will get back to his best very soon. But at the minute, his competition is Cole Palmer, so good luck. As we move into the front three, which is Noni Madueke on the right, Nicholas Jackson spearheading the attack, with Pedro Neto coming in for Mykhailo Mudryk. Mykhailo Mudryk has largely been pretty ineffective for Maresca so far. All three of the games that he's played, he's not looked anything near the player that he should. And I think, judging by Pedro Neto's impact in the game versus Wolves, I think it's very clear he's going to have his spot very soon. Obviously, we have just signed Jadon Sancho. I don't believe Sancho's start. There's a very real possibility he could be in the squad, because unlike a lot of people, he has actually had a pre-season. He's been training with the United team, which means it's very unlikely he'll need bringing up to speed because he'll be fine. I'd love to see him come off the bench. That would be great, but not going to start. Now, Palace have had a very, very rough start to the beginning of the season. Arguably the biggest fail to live up to expectations team. I had them picked for a very good season in 10th, but so far they've failed in both of their games, losing 2-1 to Brentford. Admittedly, they were unlucky, and 2-0 to West Ham. It's been a rough start for Palace. They are very clearly struggling with losing Michael Elise, who is their talisman player. And as good as Eze is, he is largely a lot less effective without his partner in crime. Mateta so far has not, in the Premier League at least, been up to speed yet. They did play midweek versus Norwich, which is a very good point, but that also works against them because that means they've had another game. Then against Solvay, we played Servette. So Eze has struggled a little bit. Positive for them, they've kept hold of Mark Gehi, which is very good for them. They're going to pay for that in a year's time, though, because he's only going to have a year left on his deal, and someone will have him. So they might pay for that soon. But right now, very good for them. Obviously, Gehi's been made club captain as well. They've taken the tart from Joel Ward, because Joel Ward obviously isn't playing as many games anymore. He is obviously a bit of a danger man to worry about here. Obviously plays on the left of a back three as well, which means he's going to be Madueke's problem to deal with. So that'll be very interesting to watch. They've obviously lost Joachim Anderson back to Fulham. And they have brought in replacements to fill in that spot. Obviously, Trevor Chalobah, as I mentioned earlier, on loan from us, as well as Maxence Lacroix from Wolfsburg, who I actually really do like as a player. He's incredibly quick. So if he's playing at all this game, Jackson's going to have some pretty big competition in the speed department, so that's going to be interesting to watch. They obviously play a 3-4-3 with 2 wing-backs, 2 midfielders, and then obviously... Actually, it doesn't actually function as a 3-4-3. It functions as a 3-4-2-1, which is normally 2 10s, which in this case are obviously Eberichi Eze as well as newly acquired Daichi Kamada. So that'll be very interesting to see how we deal with that. And then obviously Jean-Philippe Mateta, who ended last season very strongly, being, I believe, the first ever Crystal Palace player to score a hat-trick at Selhurst Park, which is impeccable, by the way. It's also very important to mention, our record against Palace is spotless. We haven't lost a game against Palace since 2017, which is the longest winning streak of any team in the Premier League versus another team. It'll be a very competitive game. I've rated Oliver Glasner as a manager since I found out he was signed to Palace. I say this all the time, there are only 3 managers in the Premier League with a European trophy to their name: Pep, Emery and Glasner. So he is very clearly a very good manager. So he can't be underestimated just based on the start of the season, but they are clearly missing Elise a lot, because you just see how much he brung to that team. They're clearly not as deadly without him, but they still have to be feared. Eberichi Eze, even without Elise, is still a very good player, so that's obviously someone to be watching out for. Daichi Kamada is a pretty solid player. Obviously worked with Glasner before at Frankfurt, and I believe won the Europa League with him. Mateta on his day is a very good player and must be feared at all times. He's deceptively quick, Mateta, and incredibly powerful, so that's always to be taken into consideration. Their midfield is a very interesting combination of Will Hughes and Adam Wharton. Adam Wharton's a very good player. Obviously brought with England to the Euros. Didn't get a minute because his competition was Kobe Mainoo and Declan Rice, so kind of skint there. Unfortunate for him. Very good player. Bought him from Blackburn in January. He's done impeccable for them so far, so very good player. Alongside Will Hughes, it's effectively like playing 2 defensive midfielders, which alongside a back 3 makes them incredibly difficult to break down. So that'll be some interesting footwork for Palmer, Madueke, Neto and Jackson to deal with. So they'll have to figure out a way to either play around them or play over them, which is usually where Levi and Enzo come into consideration, because obviously their ball playing ability allows them to go over defenses. The amount of pace in our attack between Neto, Jackson and Madueke, they should be off by that point. So it'll be a very interesting game. For a score prediction, I don't particularly believe it's going to be a high scoring affair. Despite our good record against them, there very rarely are high scoring affairs in this game. So I'm going to go with 2-1 in this one. I can't see them not scoring a goal. They tend to pretty much always score a goal against us, annoyingly. I think we're going to get the win in this, and I think the goals are going to come from Jackson. I think he's going to be a bit invigorated on the back of this whole transfer saga with Osimhen, wanting to prove himself. And I'll say Palmer for another goal. I think it's going to be a Palmer penalty, to be honest. I think we're going to get the first penalty of the season here, which would be first Premier League penalty of the season, which would be very nice to see. Palmer bags penalties all day, all night. And Palace scorer, I'll say Eze, why not? But hopefully we continue off the momentum from the Wolves game, and hopefully we go and get another win. Prove that west side of London belongs to Chelsea. Brentford, Fulham, you can sod off. The west of London is Chelsea, and the south of London can't do nothing about it. I hope you all enjoyed this Chelsea countdown. Please let me know your lineup and thoughts on the game and our transfer business in the comments below. And until next time, I have been the Crimson Wolf. I am the reddest Chelsea fan on the internet, and I hope you all enjoy the game tomorrow. Let's go get a win. Good luck with it.